Our first speaker tonight is Jeremy Clopton. He is a director at BKB and an instructor with the Management Development Institute at Missouri State University. Please help me welcome Jeremy.
Good evening, everyone. Lazy, entitled, narcissistic, not loyal, cheap, but smart. These are all phrases that have been used to describe the millennial generation. Persistent, hardworking, determined to succeed, innovative, and fiercely loyal. These are all phrases used to describe individual millennials. Millennials are not the problem. To determine why we think that the popular opinion is that millennials are in that first category, which is what a lot of you may be thinking, judged by the laughter and the smiles that I saw when I read those, or when I mentioned those phrases, we have to figure out why it is that popular opinion falls into that first category. Is it that we truly believe an entire generation of people are lazy, narcissistic, or entitled? Or is it that maybe the media has sensationalized the negative in an effort to get clicks, views, likes, and retweets? I think we all probably have a pretty good idea as to where that comes from. Millennials are not the problem. My experience in this area comes from the corporate world. And in the corporate world, we often hear that millennials are causing all kinds of issues in the workplace. When something isn't working in the office, when turnover increases or issues just can't be resolved, it's often that you hear it's just those millennials. I hear managers speak about this all the time, and I hear it at conferences across the nation. In fact, just last week, I heard somebody at a conference mention, I just need help figuring out the millennials. The great irony in that is that the individual asking the question was a millennial. Sometimes everybody is trying to figure out what's up with the millennials. I recently heard an executive remark that I just don't get it. Maybe it's time that I retire. The issue that he was facing was not a challenging issue, though. It definitely wasn't time for him to retire. He was facing an issue that's very common in corporations across the country right now. And it's actually a fairly straightforward issue. His issue was that his employees were hoping that they could have some more flexibility to work outside the office and not have to be in the office from 8 to 5 solely to be seen by management. The audacity that some people have. If you really step back and look at this issue, though, it makes a lot of sense that this issue is being raised. Corporations are providing their employees technology that allows them to work remotely from virtually anywhere they want in the world, from the boardroom to the beach. With laptops, cell phones, and tablets and cloud-based solutions, you can get your work done just about anywhere. What's more, in this industry, in this executive's industry, the employees are working remotely and are wildly productive nearly every day. Whether it's at conferences, in hotels, in an airport or on an airplane, or even visiting clients, they're productive nearly every single day in a remote environment. But as soon as they want to work from home, a coffee shop, perhaps a library, or a co-working space where they can maybe get a little bit more creative with those that are around them, all of a sudden it becomes those millennials trying to figure out how to be lazy and get rid of their responsibilities. Millennials are not the problem. There are a lot of other workplace issues that are associated with the millennial generation as well. A desire for a greater work-life integration. It's no longer a balance, but more of an integration. They expect respect in the workplace, and they look for an organization that will be respectful toward them. But the way that we hear about these issues is not in those broad descriptions. Rather, it's in a couple words. They're lazy, they're entitled, they're not loyal to the organizations. And if we look at an entire generation through a 1 or 2 word phrase, we're going to have a very misguided sense of reality. Those 1 or 2 word phrases are designed to spark emotion, to get clicks, likes, views, and retweets. That's all that they do. So why is it then that we use these generalizations for an entire generation? Because it's easy. It allows us to actually ignore the issues that are going on in the workplace and that are going on in society as a whole. If we can quickly just say it's that generation's fault, we can just ignore what's going on. So if the problem isn't the millennials, what's the problem? Everybody wants to think it's the millennials, so if it isn't them, we have to have an actual problem going on. And surely it can't be us, right? hate to say it, but it is. And it always has been. The same thing happened to the traditionalists. The same thing happened to the baby boomers, to Generation X. It's now happening to the millennials. And just the other day, I heard a 19-year-old remark to me that kids these days just don't get it. It's already happening to Generation Z, and they're not even out of high school yet. And what it stems from is what I refer to as when I was your age syndrome, or more formally referred to as experience bias, an unconscious bias that we all have. It's what doesn't allow us to ignore our life experiences. And it's where we view it from a lens that doesn't allow us to see an idea or an issue for what it truly is. We look at it based on what happened when I was your age, and the way that we know things always have to work. And it's been going on for ages, to quote my 4-year-old Generation Z daughter. My daughter and my other daughter and my wife are the ones that first taught me how to recognize experience bias. Because it happens in all aspects of our lives. It's not just in the corporate world. You see, about a year ago, my wife and I decided to join a golf club. And if you want to see what experience bias is, everyone in here right now probably already has an idea as to what this golf club looks like. Somebody says they joined a golf club, you think restaurant minimums, swimming pools, tennis courts, really nice golf course, khaki shorts, polo shirts. But as it turns out, this golf course has one dress code, and that is a shirt must be worn at all times. Let's go ahead and get the experience bias out of the way there. We joined this golf course because they allowed us to bring our kids out onto the golf course. And it wasn't uncommon to see us walking around on an evening, both carrying a bag of golf clubs, one of us pushing a double stroller. We became known at the course as the walkers. We were the only ones that didn't have a golf cart, so we walked the course because we were pushing a stroller rather than golf cart. It's then that I started to learn about experience bias. Because to me, golf is played a certain way. You wear khaki shorts, a polo, golf shoes, a golf glove. Takes 4 to 4.5 hours for a round of 18 holes. Maybe if it's Saturday afternoon at your municipal course, 5 or 6 hours. But golf is played a very particular way. Add a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old to the mix, golf is not played that particular way. Sure, we'd go out in the evenings for our couple hours to sneak in 9 holes after work. And some nights we got in 9 holes. And other nights when our 18-month-old decided she wanted to walk the course, we got in 2 or 3 and it still took 2 or 3 hours. It's amazing how it can change your perspective. A simple request that I didn't need to get dressed up to go play golf with the family turned into a new golf wardrobe. Gym shorts and a t-shirt, let me tell you, as an OCD accountant, that was it. That was the experience bias moment in my life where I realized I don't know that golf will go on if I don't wear khaki shorts and polo. As it turns out, golf doesn't have to be played the way that I always thought golf had to be played. It's still just as hard to get the ball in the hole if you're in a gym shorts and a t-shirt, walking an hour because your 18-month-old wants to walk all 565 yards of the par 5. It's still golf, it's still played the same way, but it changes your perspective. So what does this have to do with millennials? It's that experience bias that leads all of the managers, leaders, your colleagues, and others to start to say, we have to start managing to the millennials. We have to cater to the millennials. We have to change our vocabulary to the millennials. We don't have to do any of that. We simply have to remove experience bias from our lives so that we can see the ideas that are presented based on their merit. Because the issues that millennials are raising, and they're typically associated with millennials, aren't new. They're the same issues that have been happening throughout the corporate world for a number of years. And where do those beliefs come from? Because the millennials aren't the problem, and these issues have been around for a while, then why do we have all of these new issues being associated with them? Well, it's interesting if you think about it. Millennials get their whole belief structure the same place that every other generation did. Yes, the information age is much more prevalent for millennials, let's not kid ourselves. But their core beliefs still come from those who raised them. Their parents, their grandparents, their teachers, their role models growing up. Millennials heard when they were younger that they wished that their parents could be there more. Oh, I'd love to be there for your t-ball game, but I just have to work late tonight. I wish I could be at home with the family for dinner a little bit more, but there's just too much going on. Yeah, the company really cares about me, but as soon as they hit an economic challenge, I got laid off. We start to hear how what they were hearing as they were growing up, and we see where their belief structure came from. When they got to school, they were encouraged to work in teams and collaborate. They were not taught to work individually. It was all about team collaboration. They were taught in high school and in college to ask better interview questions than the interviewer. They have been coached and encouraged throughout their lives to take a stand for what they believe in and not be afraid to speak up. And this wasn't taught to them by the other millennials. I don't know of a 4-year-old that said, I think we need a sticker chart. Not met that 4-year-old yet. This was taught to them by their parents, their grandparents, their teachers, their role models, and all of those that influenced them when they were younger. It did not come from the millennials. So if we have these problems, they have this new belief structure, we need to remove experience bias, how is it that we solve the problem? Because to me, we have a great opportunity here. We have an opportunity to leverage a generation that is looking to expand their minds. Before they got to the corporate world, millennials could go out and research a company. If they wanted to figure out how the best company in the world was run, they read the CEO's book, read his or her blog, probably followed him or her on social media and asked questions and interacted, downloaded the podcast. By the time they got to the corporate world, they knew as much as some learned in 20 years of on-the-job experience. And that's now being pegged as a negative for an entire generation. To me, that's a great opportunity with that generation. They're motivated, they want to learn, they have their priorities in line, and they're looking for the right organization for them. Millennials are not the problem. And we have an opportunity now to fix the problem, to find a solution, to experience new, fresh ideas with a new, fresh perspective, and start to evaluate ideas based on their merit rather than who submitted them. And the solution is quite simple. It only takes 2 things. The first thing that we have to do is we have to acknowledge that generalizing an entire generation is a cop-out. It's exactly what it is. It's an excuse so we can ignore all of the issues that are going on in our society and in our organizations today. Those issues that are being raised are not new. Everyone in this audience has probably thought about some of the things that millennials raise as an issue, wanting to be home more with their family, looking for an organization that respects them. That's not new to this generation. Trying to peg that as a generalization that makes them a bad generation is a cop-out. We need to step back and start to evaluate ideas, not through the lens of experience bias, but through the lens of how does this impact our organization? What can we do to make our organization better, regardless as to who gives us this idea? The second thing that we need to do is experience our own little golf course walk, as I like to refer to my golfing experience. We need to have our own golf course walk to figure out what are our biases in our lives. What is our specific experience bias? Where is it in our organization or in our lives that we're thinking, every time somebody says something, my instant reaction is no, that won't work, because I just know that it won't. I tried that 40 years ago, it's not going to work. Trust me. I tried that 4 years ago, I tried that 4 days ago, I tried that 4 months ago. It just won't work. We need to step back and remove the experience bias, identify those in our lives, and start to evaluate ideas based on their merit. Once we have the golf course walk experience, you'll be able to identify it not only in that part of your life, but you'll be able to identify it in all aspects of your lives. You'll be able to step back and realize that ideas are ideas. And it'll help you to realize that millennials are not the problem. Thank you.